Hi everyone, Soul here with a quick note in post-production. We had some technical issues in this recording, namely that Quitter lost the first half of his audio. So if you're wondering why he's not around and then suddenly chimes in halfway through, that's why. It shouldn't affect your listening experience too much due to the magic of editing, but there you go. Now on to episode 3, Holiday in the Fog. We hope you enjoy it. Warning! This podcast contains spoilers. We'll be discussing seasons 1 through 4 of Code Lyoko and may refer to any and all supplementary material from the novels through to the live-action Code Lyoko evolution. So, if you don't already know the name of Odd's pet dog, and if you don't already know which celebrity Jeremy Belpaw is the closest thing to, you're about to find out! Here we are, going far to podcast all that we love. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Podcast Without Danger, where we will be returning to the past week by week to rewatch and review every episode of Code Lyoko, the 2003 animated series created by Thomas Roman and Tanya Palumbo. Let's get ready to virtualize as we go through the warm fuzzy moments, near-death experiences, and incredibly silly jokes from this weird and wonderful show. I'm souljelly, and stepping into the scanners with me, as usual, are my wonderful co-hosts, my fellow Lyoko warriors, Quitter 10 and Dianna, with 2 N's. And no T's, unless you're drinking tea while we do the podcast, in which case I would stand corrected.
That's cute.
I only have, 10 more letters, 20 more letters of the alphabet to work with before I run out of jokes, so, hang in there. It'll be over soon.
Well, that's okay. I'm sure that between the 3 of us, we can come up with some more weird puns and jokes.
No doubt. How's it going?
I passed out candy to children.
Nice.
It was cute. So trick-or-treating here goes for a couple of hours. I think there's kind of a set time frame. So it's supposed to end at 8 p.m. So what we did was we had the bowl of candy at the bottom of the driveway, and then I sat up, near the top, on the porch or whatever, just keeping an eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
And took it in at 8. And then, of course, after 8 o'clock, 2 separate people come by with their children, ringing the doorbell, setting off my poor dog. And, one of them had her kid on her shoulders, and the other one, I guess, was, driving around, and, her kid was hopping out of the car and, going up to houses. And it's trick-or-treating is over.
No more fun till next year. It's done. You missed your chance.
I mean, whatever. They got candy, put the bowl back outside for another, hour or so, and there was still candy left over, so that was nice.
Nice. I was like, ooh, this episode is totally Halloween themed, and it's totally not, but I don't know. It's a holiday and there's spooky smoke, so shall we get on to episode 3 and do Holiday in the Fog? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Sweet, let's do it. So, episode 3 of season 1 of Code Lyoko is Holiday in the Fog, written by Laurent Turner and storyboarded by Christophe Pitet. In today's episode, Jeremy stays at Caddick over the holidays, and Xana tries to take him out by filling the school with toxic fumes. So yeah, it's spooky. It's Code Lyoko level spookiness. It's, there's a bit of near-death, there's some drama, there's Sissy Dalmas being a terrible teenage girl, although hidden depths this episode, which is cool. Any first impressions, initial thoughts you can remember?
Yeah, I thought this episode opened differently.
Oh yeah?
I don't know why, but I know there's an episode later in season 1 that opens with them sliding down the hallway in their socks.
I love that scene.
Racing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not, but
I'm going to look forward to that one when we get to it, though. But yeah, no, I remember this one just because I just really like the friendship scenes in it, and I really like the mural that they do with Jim both times. So, yeah. So the episode begins nighttime at Caddick Academy, and Ulrich Stern sneaks out to the courtyard, beckoning Jeremy to follow. Ulrich holds up a spray paint can. Shenanigans are about to ensue. Meanwhile, Jim is fast asleep, and Kiwi, Odd's dog, who we're meeting here for the first time, enters his room, pulls the duvet off his bed, and licks his face to wake him up. Jim chases Kiwi out of the room, probably waking up the entire faculty with all his yelling. Odd watches from nearby. This is all happening just as planned. So yeah, if you're watching this for the first time, you might have a nice moment here where you recognise this dog from Odd's drawing in the last episode and from the emblem on his shirt on Lyoko, which is quite neat. As Quitter said, like, if you're watching this, you have no idea who Kiwi is at this point. Jim chases Kiwi through the courtyard and Ulrich sneaks off, leaving Jeremy to be caught red-handed with a can of spray paint and a very impressive bit of graffiti featuring Jim with bunny ears. Why are they both such good artists?
Yeah, like, I just, how... I mean, it's cartoon logic, but, like, how did they do it that quickly?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it would have made sense for Ulrich to be, like, you know, watching Kiwi and Odd to be spray painting it with Jeremy, but, I mean, I just don't understand how the two... And it's also season 1, so it's kind of like a completely different show. But, I mean, like, you know, 1 second they're just standing there getting the paint cans ready, and then the next minute they're like, oh, we're done. It's a whole entire mural.
So many plot
I don't
holes.
know.
This is the real analysis here. This is there are a couple of bits in this episode that, like, the continuity and the pacing and, like, some of the details are a little bit off, which we'll get to as we go. So this is just the first of kind of a couple of things where it's like, actually that kind of doesn't quite make sense when you think about it. Although, as Jeremy points out, if I'd had more time, I could have done the eyes better, which is what he says to Jim, who is really, like, not impressed at all. Love that scene. Yumi Ishiyama title card. Cut to the next day. Yumi, Odd, and Ulrich wait for Jeremy outside the principal's office. I hope this will teach you a lesson, Jeremy, says Jean-Pierre. I don't understand. A model student like you? You should be ashamed. Jeremy has detention for the entire week of the school holidays. The group are pleased, heaping praise upon Jeremy and saying they couldn't have done a better job themselves, and Jeremy says with a smirk that Xana won't be getting any vacation either. I love the scene.
I don't understand why he didn't just ask to stay at school. But, like, it doesn't, in my brain, I obviously, like, again, it's a cartoon, but in my brain, like, it doesn't make sense for them to ground him at school for the holiday. Like, okay, it's a vacation, maybe the, you know, dorms are closing, whatever, but then, you know, he would have his punishment when he got back. Instead, they're like, no, you're not even going home to your family. You're going to be sitting in your room the whole time and like cleaning graffiti. I don't know.
It feels a bit like a violation of rights, really. Like, he is entitled to that vacation. That did make me laugh too. It's like, it's all very convoluted, the whole setup for this. Again, it's, I don't know, different writers.
Yeah, and then Herv and Nicholas are like, oh, it seems like he wanted to stay back. Like, he's really excited about being punished. And I'm like, yeah.
As Dianna and Quitter pointed out, Nicholas, Herv, and Sissy are super confused at this point. Why is Jeremy so happy about getting detention? It's almost like he planned it. And who's this Xana they're talking about in full earshot of basically everyone around? Like, we'll talk about outside of POV kind of more and more as the series goes on, but they talk about Xana and Lyoko very publicly, like, all the time, and every single time I watch it, I'm like, people are, like, you're within earshot of so many people who are like, what are you talking about? And this is...
Yeah, like, the entire student body is at lunch, and you're sitting there just blabbing on about, oh, Aelita's antivirus, oh, Xana. It's like...
So
are you
funny.
that stupid?
It's dumb as hell. Like, honestly, if I was a student at Caddick, I would be racing to the dining room to get a seat at their table or next to their table so I could, like, listen to the next installment every time. I'd be like, oh my god, what's happening today? Like, Aelita's an AI, like, the antivirus, how's that going? I'd be so invested. Yeah, like a LARP, like a live-action roleplay thing. That's
and that's genuinely all they had to tell people to, like, make them... Because it's easily believable. Like, oh, we're in, like, a D&D group, or we're LARPing, or whatever. Instead, everybody's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is why... And we'll see it later with Sissy, depending on the writer in the episode, that she's so, like, gung-ho about being in their group and finding out their secret.
Right.
And it's like, all you people had to do was just tell her something completely different, and she would have been like, oh, okay, whatever, I'm not interested.
For sure. I mean, you could definitely take from this, like, Sissy's really into D&D and she really wants to play with them or whatever. Like, and they, I don't know, it's interesting for sure. It makes me laugh every time. Sissy has a plan of her own to make sure she can stay behind for the holidays and find out what Jeremy's up to. She tricks her father into letting her stay at school instead of going to visit her grandparents. So this is the bit that makes sense why Sissy needs an excuse to stay, because obviously she lives at the school, right? Her dad works at the school, owns the school, like this is her home. I do love this bit, actually. I've been doing a lot of analysis of Sissy and Jean-Pierre's relationship at the minute, and this whole bit is just so fun. Like, Jean-Pierre is so out of his depth with a teenage daughter. You can just see it here in his entire body language, his entire, like, just facial expressions. He's just like, why do I have this child? Like, what do I do with her? Like, why is she like this? Makes me laugh. Do we want to talk about Sissy's, like, parents and, like, her mum and the fact that her mum isn't around at this point? Like, that's a really interesting bit of, like, characterization that kind of pops up.
Yeah, I think that this would be a good opportunity to do so.
For sure. So it's implied in Evolution. There's a line that suggests that Sissy kind of sees her now and then and that she's around. I know some people kind of assume that she like died or something, but I think it is canon that she is around, just absent from Sissy's life, which I think is really interesting. I kind of prefer that. I think it says a lot about Sissy if she does have this really strained relationship with her mum. Like, it kind of speaks to her need for approval, her loneliness, kind of the front that she puts on, this like big like mean girl bully type of person. I think it really makes a lot of sense if you think about the fact that she is kind of missing this person in her life. I don't know, feel free to agree, disagree, but...
No, I completely agree. I think that speaks a lot to her character, that she doesn't really have what, you know, we're observing as the viewer, a positive female role model in her life. And you can really see, like, she is a master manipulator when she's talking to JP about staying home or for the break, like staying at school, which again begs the question, why didn't Jeremy just ask him if he could stay at Caddick?
Right? So silly. But yeah, no, as you said, Sissy is so devious, and it's actually really interesting to see this scene with her father, because it's the kind of cunning that would make her so good for handling the adults on the Earth side of things if she was one of the Lyoko warriors. Like, that right there is such a good skill set. She can talk her way out of stuff, she can make excuses, she knows how to, like, manipulate her dad. Like, she will later on see that we'll talk about her having, like, a relationship with Jim, like... I don't know, so much potential there to be a person to help get them out of trouble.
Literally everything is pointing to her being the ideal addition to their group. And I don't know why they didn't see it sooner.
This could be the start. Like, this episode would have been, if there had been kind of more of an overarching story in season 1, this would have been the start of a really good subplot around Sissy's character development that then led to her becoming a Lyoko warrior. Scene change. Ulrich outlines the group's holiday plans. Odd's going to see his parents, quote, at the other end of the planet, unquote. Yumi's off to the mountains, and poor Ulrich has a week of maths tutoring ahead of him. Odd teases Ulrich about the impossible mission of turning Ulrich into a good student with just a week's turnaround. Jeremy, of course, is staying at Caddick in case Xanon attacks, and so he can work on Aelita's materialization program. But he won't be alone. Sissy's going to be there. She announces this with a smug expression, having suddenly just appeared. Was she waiting in the bushes? Like, she was not there a second ago.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It's fully my headcanon that she was just crouching in the bushes for like a solid 20 minutes. Like, I'm going to wait for the perfect line to like chime in here. I don't know. Speaking of people appearing out of nowhere, the next minute Jim also appears. This whole bit, I'm sorry, I've got the giggles because, like, in my notes I was just, Jim tells Jeremy that the wall he graffitied isn't going to clean itself, so he'd better get to work. No! That's a one scene.
If you are curious, like, as to what exactly, like, we're talking about these expressions, we will put links to these specific screenshots in the show notes, like the graffiti and Jim's face, because they're really just gems.
You've got truly brilliant, honestly. Just like, the show is so zany in so many ways. Like, there's just little bits of animation and detail, and you're just like, there's some love that went into this, definitely. So Jim tells Sissy that he's going to be monitoring her over the holidays to make sure she's studying like she said she would. In comparison to the fates of Jeremy and Sissy, Ulrich says his maths tutoring isn't looking all that bad. Cut to Jim relaxing in a deck chair while Jeremy scrubs off the wall with Sissy's help. Once Jeremy and Sissy are alone, Sissy gets down to business, interrogating Jeremy about what's going on. Did you do this graffiti all by yourself, or did your friend Xana help you? There's, I don't know, this whole bit where Sissy is, like, so convinced that she's, like, got Jeremy on the ropes, and he's just like, oh, she does not know anything. It's really funny. There's so many fun Jeremy and Sissy interactions this episode, for sure. In the school building, grey smoke pours out of the electrical sockets, and sinister background music plays. It's Xana time! The smoke knocks over some vats of chemicals, and noxious fumes rise from the spillage. And Caddick gets no repercussions for the massive health and safety violations at play here. Again, like, so many convoluted things in this episode that probably didn't really need to be. I find it just really interesting, the choices that they made.
If Xana, like, because, you know, Xana's smoke with tendrils. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if it, like, fused part of itself with the smoke to make it toxic, or with the chemicals to make it a toxic smoke.
Ooh.
I mean, all we see is that, like, it knocked over the barrels, which that's, like, a really low effort attack. Oh, okay. Yeah, then that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. You're right. Why would they have toxic chemicals in a middle school storage closet?
It's so, yeah, I don't know. I do feel like it makes a lot of sense, like Dianna said, to have had Xana, what's the word I'm looking for, enhance the smoke in some way. Because, like, or the fumes, or, like, whatever the substance was. Because otherwise this really does not make any sense.
I don't know. I mean, what else? I thought there was something else. I feel like there's a few things throughout the show that point to, like, this place is just whacked. Not only are there, you know, the chemicals that are just out in the open, but no offense to Jim, we're really supposed to believe that, like, he's the sole person in charge of the student body. Like, he's the only, like, dorm parent. And even then, he's not really a dorm parent. Like, he's just, you know, yelling out his rules to everybody. I don't know.
Meanwhile, Sissy and Jeremy hanging out at the wall. Sissy asks Jeremy if Xana is his girlfriend. Wrong AI. She's so close, but she's so far. It's the wrong virtual being. Although, obviously, Jeremy can't just be like, actually, my girlfriend is Aelita, not Xana, thank you, because that would just raise so many other questions.
Oh, you know, he could have just said my girlfriend goes to a different school.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's from Canada. You wouldn't know her.
Jeremy hits back that Xana's a rock group, not that Sissy would know with her taste in music, which is like a great little bit of banter here between these two. The two snipe back and forth, and Jeremy decides it's time for a break, sitting in the deck chair and heckling Sissy with his best Jim impression. Except Jim appears behind him and he's once again unimpressed. Ulrich Stern title card. That evening, Sissy's on the phone to Herb complaining about her day. Herb tells her she should go to sleep, but she's determined not to miss out on whatever Jeremy's up to, even though she's really got no idea what exactly that is. So we talked about Sissy and Herb sort of being friends before, and I like this scene with them. Like, the idea that those two just have casual phone conversations, like she's phoned him to complain. I just think that's really fun.
I love this. She treats them like shit. Sorry, but, like, she really does. The whole entire show, she treats them like absolute shit. This is, like, one of the only times that she's actually a decent human being. And I just love it. Also, how is her whole entire body sore from cleaning graffiti off of a wall?
She's clearly never done a day's work in her life. All that bending down to, you know, dip the sponge in the bucket or whatever and back up, it's just way too much. Quick Sissy and Herb question. I think we have talked about this on Discord, but for the purposes of the podcast, how do we think these two started hanging out?
Yeah, can I copy your homework?
I can see it, like, maybe so my headcanon for this is that they got assigned seats next to each other, which is also a way. Yeah. And then, like, Herb just started following her around, like, oh, I guess we're friends now. But I also do really like the idea of Sissy approaching Herb to copy his homework. That's quite fun.
Is it canon in the show that he and Nicholas are roommates, or is that a thing that I made up in my head?
I believe they are, yeah. It definitely is in the IFSCL, because when you're doing the free world stuff with Jeremy, you can walk into Nicholas and Herb's room. And Imu's pretty good about staying true to canon. So
yeah, that makes sense then as to like why she would also be hanging out with Nicholas, because you know he and Herb were probably friends due to being roommates. And then you're right. Maybe it was a combination though of like being assigned seats, and also she realized, oh, he's really smart.
Kind of makes sense. Like you can kind of see how that might have happened. But yeah, this scene that implies that they do have a sort of friendship and they do talk to each other outside of like school is kind of a nice insight into that relationship as well.
And we never see this again.
R.I.P. Tonight I'm going to play Super Spy, says Sissy. Tonight's the night I find out the secret of Jeremy and his weird friends. Although, at this point, we don't really know much about Sissy's motivations other than she wants to sabotage the group for whatever reason. But it is really interesting to see the build-up to that revelation and how that's done. We've just got Sissy being nosy and sneaky and ways that seem unfounded. There's all this, like, tension between the two groups, which we've seen between, like, Millie and Tamir and the prom and all that. Yeah, I think the pacing of Sissy's story in this particular episode is quite nicely done. Jeremy's coding in his room, but he needs to go to the factory if he wants to make any more progress. In a nice parallel to the previous scene, Aelita tells Jeremy he should go to bed. It's not the end of the world if I stay virtual for one more day, she says, which is a really interesting choice of phrase because that is exactly the stakes. Thank you very much, Aelita. We've already seen the world end almost 2 times already, so it very much could well be the end of the world. So, yeah. Jeremy's got different priorities. If Aelita doesn't get here soon, he's going to have to spend his vacation with Sissy and Jim. Oh, the horror. It doesn't matter that the world's going to end. If Aelita doesn't get here soon, he's just going to be stuck with these people he doesn't like.
This was an interesting line, too, because, like, realistically, even if he were to materialize her, like, during their vacation, she doesn't exist. And they talk about this later on in the season. She doesn't have an ID. She doesn't have, like, a, you know, whatever the French equivalent of a social security number is. She doesn't have, like, any sort of, like, birth certificate or anything, like, identifying her as a real person.
Although, you know, we've got Jeremy and his propensity to commit cybercrimes. So he's going to hook her up with all the fake
I
ID.
know, and that's what he ends up doing. But I just think that it's interesting to see his mindset without the other 3 around. Because you know damn right well that they would talk him off this ledge immediately. Because they do. They're like, you need to sit down and slow down for a minute. Like, she has no documentation stating that she's a real person.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's fair. Like, this is Jeremy's just kind of full, oh, you're going to get here and you're going to live with me and it's going to be great. And it's like, you know, yeah. Before he leaves, Aelita tells him, Jeremy, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing for me. That's okay, he says, blushing. Oh, they're so cute. I just wanted to highlight the scene because it's adorable. Really cute. Jeremy sneaks through the school, past a sleeping Sissy Delmas, but shouts in alarm as he finds a cloud of toxic purple gas down in one of the storage rooms, straight out of a poison Pokemon moveset. He chokes and gasps, and the viewer sees a hand reaching out behind him. It's Jim! These two are really, like, clashing a lot this episode in this particular way of, like, oh, he's behind me. Like, it's kind of funny. Don't try to tell me you were sleepwalking, says Jim, because I've been working here for 20 years, and I've heard that story about... But we don't find out just how many times because Jeremy interrupts to tell him about the poison. Interesting insight to the Jim Morales timeline here. Like, how old is this guy?
Yes, I wrote that down. And obviously, like, I think it's kind of retconned with the running gag later in the series, that he has like a billion different positions that he's been in. But 20 years? Like, how old is he supposed to be? Because he looks a lot younger than Jean-Pierre. And I think we talked about this in, like, a previous episode.
Yeah. JP's going grey early because of the stress of Sissy and running a school, which kind of makes sense. But, yeah, I'd put Jim, like, mid-40s to mid-50s, like, somewhere within that gap, which gives him enough time pre-cadec to have worked all the different jobs he leads to, but kind of still young enough that he's not a super old man, because obviously he doesn't look it. I don't know. Interesting. The Jim Morales lore continues to unfold.
The next minute, is that, like, he brings Jeremy to his room, tells him to stay there, and that he's gonna call his parents in the morning. And I'm thinking to myself, Jim, what do you expect Jeremy's parents to do? They are nowhere nearby. He is staying at school in your care. Like, why are you calling his parents? Like, genuinely, like, what do you expect them to do? And also, I mean, I know that, like, JP is, like, not here, and you technically are the authoritative figure, but, like, Jean-Pierre is the principal. This, in my opinion, would be something more that would fall under, like, his domain. But I just don't understand the line about, like, oh, we're gonna call your parents in the morning, and you're gonna explain what you did. And I'm like, what's the point of that?
Right. If I was a parent and I guess we can talk about this at a later point, but, like, if I was a kid and a parent and I'd sent my kid to this prestigious boarding school, it's like, I sent them there so the teachers can deal with them. Like, I don't want them on the phone, like, you know, that's your job. Like, what are you calling me for? I'm clearly, you know, doing my own thing.
Right. And I said this earlier, Soul, while you were, like, stepped away. Jim, for all intents and purposes, is, like, the dorm parent. He is. Like, he's the PE teacher, and he is the sole parental figure of all of these children. Like, it is his job to be taking care of them and to be disciplining them, as well as Jean-Pierre. Like, if there's a serious offense that requires them to actually be punished with, like, a suspension or something, such as, you know, Jeremy with the graffiti, then that would be more of JP's thing. But, like, Jim actually, like, taking care of them in the dorms, making sure they don't do stupid shit, like, that is his domain. Like, what is the point of calling his parents? He lives at the school.
Yeah, it's really silly. And, yeah, this is one of the things where I kind of said earlier, if you think about some of the things in this episode for, like, more than a second, they start to be, like, not really holding up.
They don't make sense.
Yeah, it's a silly one. Jim opens the door to find the fallen vats of chemicals. The smoke has vanished. It must be Xana, Jeremy realises. But, as we talked about, there's little he can do because Jim's banished Jeremy to his room. He connects to Aelita on Lyoko, and she confirms that Xana's awake, and she can feel the pulsations. Morning at Caddick Academy in the next scene shift, and Gas travels through the vents. We see a brief shot of Sissy, who is fast asleep. Then a factory montage, and then a cut back to the vents. Again, like I was saying, the pacing in this episode is a little bit weird. Like, there's all these, like, sudden, like, choppy scene shifts. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it, like, surprises me that, like, Xana, like, first, like, activated the tower in the night and waited, like, until it was morning before it, like, attacked.
What happened? The Gas is just, like, having a nap in the storage room, and then just, like, it's morning, it's like, oh, best get on with the attack. Like, it's a bit of a weird one. I don't know.
Yeah, it really is. The pacing in this episode is bizarre. I mean, I get it, like, they're showing the exposition of the smoke traveling through the vents, but then, like, we don't really see the repercussions of it until a few minutes later when Sissy's room is completely filled with smoke. And at this point, I think Jeremy is saying, the chemical compound can be fatal after, like,
extended
inhalation.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously
the
gas doesn't disperse naturally. It seems to all be controlled by Xana. So, yeah, obviously, realistically, if gas had been in the school overnight, it would have seeped into the atmosphere and probably would have been deadly through that inhalation over kind of a long period of time. But, yeah, suddenly it's just all there in one go, descending on Sissy. It's interesting. Yeah.
Also, the smoke never once reaches the factory. Like, I don't get it, because nobody's in the school except for Jim and Sissy, and later Ulrich when he goes to try and find them. I don't understand why the attack is so focused on the school and the surrounding area in town, but not the factory. You'd think that it would be the other way around, because typically Xana's attacks follow the Lyoko warriors.
True. But like in early season 1, it was definitely like very much focused on,
I
like,
would
mass
chalk that down
destruction and
to a
whatnot.
shift in Xana's
You're
intelligence and motivations. Like at this point, it's kind of, the attacks have been kind of off the wall. I guess the nuclear power plant, the electricity was kind of calculated, but the Teddy attack felt a bit random, and then this one feels a bit random. It's kind of like, yeah, I headcanon this as Xana is still learning. It's still kind of, maybe in its programming, it assumes that, oh, they live at the school, so they must be at the school, and maybe it hasn't realised that they're not there. I don't know. I feel like there's some explanation to be wrangled out of that. Yeah.
I could see that happening, yeah.
Me too. I love that.
I love that Xana has character development.
No, yeah, it is really cool. Especially like since Xana like barely talks in the series apart from like Ghost Channel or through William. And yet like you can really feel the way it changes,
Xana
like,
is
and
its own
progresses
character,
throughout the
and the fact
seasons.
that they do that with, as Quetta said, minimal words and all just kind of interactions and actions is very, very interesting to me. Oh, it's so good.
Honestly,
So good.
Xana's the best
So good.
villain.
It is a really cool villain.
Jim checks on Jeremy only to find his room empty. Sissy wakes up to her room filled with gas. Hearing her scream, Jim runs towards the sound. We get a shot of the two of them running as the gas creeps up on Sissy. Which totally reminds me of that bit in the South Park episode where they're running away from the global warming. I don't know if that's a reference that's like too off the wall, but...
I've never actually watched South Park, but I still bought the Fractured Butthole game, which was a pretty good game, don't get me wrong. I loved all the interactions but in like battle.
I'll drop a clip in the segment.
I understood like nothing.
Sissy and Jim collide and she wraps her arms around him, panicking, telling him there's smoke with arms. Soon they're both on the run from the sentient gas cloud, while at the factory, Jeremy manually locates the tower, which we find out is in the forest sector. The gang's going to have to cut their vacation short and get back to Caddick to help out. Cut to Ulrich, bored to tears by a Suzanne Hertz sound-alike, who's tutoring him in maths.
Yeah, in the Spanish dub, like that voice like is straight up the same voice the actress gives to Miss Hertz.
Oh yeah, it's the same one in the English dub too. Also, I'm under the impression that we're at the teacher's house.
Yeah, I think so. That does happen. Like I have gone to like
that's not unheard
tutor's
of,
house
for sure.
before, to receive lessons.
No, but like, so Ulrich lives at the school.
Pretty
He's a
much,
boarder.
yeah.
But like, I'm under the impression that I have a week of math tutoring means that I'm staying with my math tutor for the week for the tutoring, because like it's probably closer than going to wherever the hell his parents are supposed to be living.
So much
Good
in this
point.
episode that does not hold up with even the slightest bit of scrutiny. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I have no idea how to explain that, other than the fact that he's just gone to live with this lady for a week.
Yeah, I don't get it, because also, like, Odd is at the airport, and so it's the next day from, like, where
Yeah.
we started off in the episode. No. Yeah, so we started off, it was nighttime, then we had a day, and then we had another night. So it's been, like, the night between, like, them leaving and the following day when, like, you know, Yumi's going off and Odd's at the airport.
I'm so confused.
Where the hell was Odd
Or
that
maybe
night?
he had
Like,
a-
was he staying at Caddick?
Mm,
Like, I know there's like no reason to think too deeply into this because it's not that deep. But I mean, it doesn't.
We're here to analyze the show. Let's analyze the fuck out of the show. Let's do it.
It just doesn't make any sense to me because, like, you know, Yumi is a day student. She would have gone home. Ulrich, if he's doing the math tutoring, like, he probably just would have gone to the math tutor's house. But Odd lives at the fucking school. Like, his parents, Ulrich says he's going to visit them, quote unquote, on the other end of the planet, wherever that is, in relation to wherever they are, because every dub has its own, like, localization, pretty much. So, Odd has to take a long haul flight. So, where was he that night when Jeremy discovered the smoke? Like, was he...
Hotel, maybe?
Maybe he stayed at a hostel near the airport, or maybe he got to the airport super like early and kind of slept over there, or maybe his flight got changed. Maybe, like, I think there's enough explanations that kind of make sense. Yeah, maybe his flight got delayed or cancelled or something, so
also,
he stayed in the
script,
overnight.
the lady, the teacher, she's described as a bit of an English granny, the type who writes the most twisted thrillers while drinking tea, her pinky finger in the air.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh my god. 100%. She's now my new favourite tertiary character, because what
Also,
a description.
Like,
amazing.
Like, Ulrich sneaks out without, like, saying anything. But, like, in the original, he was supposed to go, like, what? And then the teacher, without looking back, was like, oh, I see you're super impressed with this equation I've written on the board. Yes, Pythagoras was such a genius and blah, 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 blah.
I love that. That's so funny. I prefer that.
It is hilarious.
I just love that he literally gets up and walks away. Like, he doesn't need to do or say anything. He just, like, stands up and pieces out.
So audacious. And she doesn't even notice. It's great. Meanwhile, at the airport, the security scan picks up something strange. Looks like a dog in someone's luggage. Oh, that's Kiwi. That's my dog, says Odd. This whole bit is also really funny. Like, all these scenes just after each other are excellent. I think the comedy in this episode is top tier. So my interpretation of this is that the guards are just being a bit facetious and they're kind of teasing Odd in this roundabout way. Like, what on earth is this thing that's here on the security? I don't know. Diana, did you have an extra... Oh, yeah.
Oh, I have a comment as an American dealing with the TSA. This would never happen in the United States. Never. Like, no, like this whole exchange with the airport security people, because a lot of the times they're so, and this is just my experience, they're so, like, on a power trip, because, like, they're, you know, they have to check bags, whatever. A lot of people, when they fly, they don't know what the hell they're doing when they're going through TSA. They bring shit through that they're not supposed to, because, you know, there's, like, a maximum size for liquids and a lot of things that you can't bring through TSA. Yeah, and so, you know, for the freaking dog, like, if this were to take place in the U.S., like, I know obviously it's a cartoon, like, la-di-da, this, like, whole exchange that Odd would have had with them would have been, like, completely different, I feel. But because, like, they're two, you know, like, kind of bumbling security people. Like, they're taking their job seriously, but, like, not to the point where, like, your typical, like, TSA person here in the U.S. would, where they're, like, yelling at people going through TSA. It was just so funny, like, to me, because, like, I've been on the end of that, where, like, TSA people have literally, like, been, like, hard asses to me for, like, putting my thing in the wrong bin or some bullshit. So, like, it's just so funny that, and also, what would possess Odd to think that, like, he could just bring Kiwi through in his carry-on? He's flown before, surely.
This is just classic Odd Delagovia. I think he's just like, oh, well, we'll see. Just the, you know, the harebrained audacity and the, well, you never know, you may as well give it a shot.
But you can bring dogs on planes of that size. Like, not all pets have to go in the cargo hold. Like, if it's a small animal, like a small dog or a cat, you can bring them on the plane. I think you just have to pay, like, an extra fee. But, if it's a larger animal, unless it's, a service animal, then they have to be crated and go through, like, the luggage thing or whatever.
So we have a great bit with Odd and Jeremy here, where Odd's pretending it's his grandma on the phone when Jeremy calls, and Jeremy's like, "Odd, it's me, Jeremy." And he's like, "Yeah, grandma, like, I know you hate it when I call you Gram," which is hilarious.
I love Jeremy's face.
The scene of Odd pulling some bullshit and Jeremy just absolutely perplexed by it.
Pretty much.
Which is their entire dynamic, I feel like. So that's Odd and Ulrich grounded up, and that just leaves Yumi, who's waiting in the car with her father while her mother spends ages getting ready to go. They were supposed to have left 2 hours ago, and Yumi's dad is not impressed. By the time her mum's finally ready, Yumi is gone, the backseat of the car empty. Which is great foreshadowing of the friction in Yumi's parents' relationship here.
Speaking of, like, there's a tiny deleted scene here, where, like, basically, the reason why she was taking so long is because she was trying to find the dress, right? And then, like, when she gets to the car, she's like, "Oh, you're not gonna believe this, blah, 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 blah." Turns out that the dress she was wearing, like, she steps in front of a mirror, and she's wearing it the whole entire time.
No, that's stupid as hell. I love it. Wow. That's so funny.
That is so funny. Also, I think it's funny that, like, Takeo is like, "Did you notice someone's missing in the back seat?" He's still sitting in the driver's seat with his seatbelt on. He literally could have done absolutely everything to stop Yumi from, like, just leaving.
Would you want to do a foot race with your incredibly athletic martial artist 14-year-old daughter? Like, once he realized she was out of the car, he was probably like, "She's gone. There's nothing I can do."
Yeah. There's an episode where, like, Yumi breaks the record for, like, sprinting,
there
right?
you are.
I think.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, and it's because she has to get to the factory because there's a Xana attack.
There you go. Yeah, he just watched her go and was like, "I cannot be bothered with that." But no, I totally see your point. Like, he probably could have attempted to lock the doors. Who knows? Anyway, none of this episode makes sense. Is what we're really getting the bottom line. The bottom line here is, nothing makes sense. Odd Delagobia title card. Jim and Sissy hide from the gas cloud, with Jim visibly shaken and Sissy literally quaking with fear. Jim shushes her, but the gas finds and descends upon them anyway. So, something to think about here is that Jim and Sissy have probably known each other for quite a long time. We've established that Jim's worked at Caddick for 20 years, and we don't know how long Jean-Pierre's been the principal, but we can assume, like, maybe a year, a couple of months, like, at the minimum. But I would imagine it's been a couple of years. And since the staff live at the school, Jim has probably spent a bunch of the school holidays hanging out with Sissy. I think if you just look at this scene with the idea that these two actually know each other pretty well, it just makes it a bit nicer. I don't know.
No, I completely agree. I definitely get the vibe that they know each other pretty well, and that Sissy probably even, like, goes to him for advice sometimes because, like, her dad is so busy. I mean, we hear her basically, like, pour out her, like, insecurities in regards to the Lyoko warriors when she's stuck in the closet with Jim. I don't think she would have ever said that to her dad.
I really like that insight. I think that is top notch. And Jim, for all his kind of buffoonery, she calls him like a blowhard later on at some point in one of the later episodes. And for all the fact that the kids kind of see him as a bit of a dork, or like, oh god, it's Jim, like doing whatever he's doing, like spoiling our fun, being overzealous or whatever. Like, they do clearly like him, and yeah, I can see that bit of a father figure vibe coming through here. Yeah, to see Jim for like a cool duo, I like it. I think that's really cool. The two choke on the fumes, and Jim grabs Sissy's arm to pull her into a nearby closet, then blocks the door with his jacket. On Lyoko, Aelita enters the tower. Instead of rising up on the platform, she drops off the ledge, descending through a stream of code to land on a platform on the other side. This is the first time we see the way towers, special towers which act as passages between sectors on Lyoko. I love this! I think this is such a cool... I love it.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I do too. I love the whole like animation of her going into the tower and just like falling off the platform to go into the other sectors. That's really neat.
I really like the way that everything kind of slows down and you've got that ethereal music that we associate with Aelita. It's got a kind of spiritual vibe to it, which I think is kind of cool in a digital world to have this space that kind of feels like a temple, you know? It's neat. Aelita emerges in the forest and Jeremy reminds her to be careful. He should get back to the school and warn Jim and Sissy.
Yeah, it's been like hours.
Jim and Sissy call out for help, but no one is around. Sissy's on the verge of tears. It's too late, she says. We're finished. No, we're not. Be brave now, Jim tells her. Jeremy can't be far away. He'll help us out of this. Sissy is angry. Jeremy! That's reassuring. It's nice to know the closest thing to Bruce Willis has come into the rescue.
I love this
line
because it establishes two things. One, that for some reason Sissy felt the need to compare him to Bruce Willis. And two, that Bruce Willis exists in the Code Lyoko universe.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Also, like, can we talk about how, sure, she's, like, saying, what's Jeremy gonna do now? But, like, all the way back when she first, like, woke up in her room with the fog around her, like, the first person she called for was Jeremy.
Right? She's really hot and cold on him this episode. It's like, oh, I guess, I don't know. I guess he is the only thing that she's got, but maybe this is the moment where she's like, fuck, it's just Jeremy. Like, that's our hope. But yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
and, like, the script says, she says it with wry irony. And then it says, Jim looks at Sissy, suddenly a little discouraged too.
although honestly, I am thinking about Jeremy scaling that rooftop, which I think is in season 3 or season 4. Big Die Hard vibes. Yeah, honestly, like, you know, he's got some Bruce Willis in him.
Oh yeah, what a legend.
Jeremy reaches the school and the gas engulfs him. Yumi and Ulrich find him crawling, weak and choking to death in the school grounds. They take him to safety and he tells them that Jim and Sissy are still in the school. Ulrich runs in immediately to find them. Jeremy tells Yumi that they have to get to the factory and she literally carries him through the park. Which is another great moment for these two, by the way. Like, I love the Jeremy and Yumi friendship that's here.
I do too. Also, I love that Odd literally just jumps down from a tree out of nowhere. Like, where was he?
Yeah,
right?
Like Spider-Man.
For sure. I imagine he's like hiding from the gas.
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't know. That again, that was kind of my thought, but it also doesn't really make a lot of sense. But that's all I've got. I don't know. Back in the closet, Sissy is having a reflective moment. She tells Jim that she only stayed at school to find out Jeremy's secret, because the truth is, she's been wanting to be part of their group for ages, but it's always seemed so hopeless. And there it is, Sissy's backstory and motivations revealed.
We love character development.
I love this bit.
Also, it's going to get erased by the RTTP, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Oh, for sure. The perils of the return to the past. But yeah, I do really like this. I think she gets some great character moments with JP and Jim and Jeremy and even Ulrich a little later on. I just think it's really, really interesting that these people she so desperately wants to hang out with are people who she's so mean to. And it just says so much about her character and how she does not really know how to interact with people.
Yeah, I think she's just very insecure.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. I think she doesn't really know how to relate to people and doesn't know. She's so afraid of being vulnerable that it's like, well, I'm just gonna put on all this bluster and bravado and like this mean girl appearance and, you know, maybe that'll work. And clearly it doesn't, but whatever. Jim's not paying attention. Instead, he's worrying about the lack of ventilation in the tiny room. If the gas doesn't get them, they're gonna run out of oxygen. Better stop talking then, right? Says Sissy moodily. All right, I can take a hint. Oh, Sissy. Oh,
Jim's face after she says that is so sad.
Literally. Like, he's really like, oh shit, like, she's not okay. Oh, again, just all the moments between these two this episode, I love them. They're perfect. The toxic gas has made the news, and we see footage of people collapsed in the streets. And also me and Dianna, we had the same notes on this, but there is definitely a frame with a body bag, or like what looks like a body bag. Someone died.
110%. Someone died.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. Like,
I have a headcanon on this, if we could diverge for like
no, go
a
for it,
second.
go for it.
So my thing, and I came up with this as I was writing my fan fiction, is that if somebody goes missing during an RTTP, like if they die during an attack and it's like erased, like with an RTTP, that they just like cease to exist, like they poof, like out of thin air, but like the people in their lives remember them, so like they're like a missing persons case basically. That like doesn't end up getting solved because like they're dead, but like nobody remembers that they're dead because there was a return to the past that like kind of erased their death from their memory, but like also erased the person from existence.
That is so interesting. That
is interesting. Like what I figured like always happened if someone died is that like they'd like be alive up until like the time they died in the other timeline, at which point they'd suddenly like drop dead for like a mysterious reason that
I
not
have
even an
definitely
autopsy
seen
could figure
and I
out.
think incorporated that into my headcanon too, but I'm actually much more of a fan now that I'm hearing it from Dianna of the they just get erased. I think both are valid, both are cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that both are valid, and I think that yours makes more sense, that like they would be like alive up until the point of what happened in the other timeline. But I don't know. I just think it's interesting that like we actually have visual confirmation more or less in this episode, in that particular scene, that like at least one person is dead from this Xana attack.
For sure. Let us know your headcanons and
totally.
your thoughts and your theories on the return to the past and how it affects people who die. We would love to hear them. I am always down to hear about people's thoughts and theories on this. So yeah, email in and messages on the Discord server.
Also, random observation, but like it's the only time they use a remote to control those screens in the factory, I think.
Yeah, they do. It's I was like, where is this? Because obviously we see it as like the footage on the TV screen, and then it zooms out, and it's like, oh, they're watching it on the supercomputer. That's weird. Yeah, I thought that was fun too.
They watch the news a few times on the supercomputer, though, like at least throughout season 1.
It's usually like Jeremy that like loads it up. He just like types up whatever on the Kiwi browser, and then there's always that reporter, that same female reporter, always like saying exactly what is relevant to the episode.
She's the only reporter in the area, don't you know?
Oh, lady exposition. Jeremy's still severely weakened by the gas to the point that Odd has to help him into the computer chair. Stop looking at me, he says. There's no time to lose. I can just imagine, because we don't actually see their expressions, but like I can just imagine Yumi and Odd staring at Jeremy, absolutely severely weakened, leaning against the wall, like clutching his chest, and just having this moment of like, if Jeremy dies here, what the fuck do we do?
Like, it says in the script that Odd and Yumi look at Jeremy with a mixture of surprise and pride.
Ooh, oh, that's even... I like that too. Oh, nice.
I love that.
Me too. That's cool. Oh, that makes Jeremy so much more badass, which, like, Sissy was not wrong about Bruce Willis. Jeremy's badass.
Cool.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Quetta. I'm really enjoying the input from the scripts, and I just think they add so much more to the analysis. It's awesome. Scanner montage! Transfer scanner virtualization. Our warriors finally enter Lyoko, and Aelita is hiding behind a tree. Monsters appear, Kankolat scuttling at an impressive pace across the forest floor.
3 of them.
They're so quick!
Yeah, they are.
Definitely.
Like, first off, like, random thing. There were originally, like, 5 Kankolats straight up from the beginning here, which probably made the fight, like, look a bit more impressive. And also, first time we see Yumi in Lyoko. So what do you guys think about Yumi's outfit?
Yeah, let us know. We get to see Yumi doing some cool stuff here, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, so let us know your thoughts.
I like her outfit. I think that it fits her personality. I have mixed feelings about that, like, versus the season 4 ones, but I think that the outfit that she has in seasons 1 to 3, like, really kind of fits. And it's, like, more individualized versus, like, the season 4 ones are more kind of, like, streamlined.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I like the colors. I thought that there was a thing, though, that, like, the way...
The sash, right?
Yes.
The way it's tied, like, it's meant to signify, like, funerals.
Yes.
Yeah, something about, so when it's tied on the left... Oh, I can't remember. Someone's going to have to clarify this, but
I think when it's tied, like, however she has it tied, it's supposed to signify, like, death.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. I imagine it is just a case of, like, an error or something. I would love to talk to one of the character designers and see if that was deliberate. I'm sure it'll be like, oh, we didn't even know that, which is a little unfortunate, really. Like, do your research. But, I think that's really cool.
So, like, now that we've seen the 4 outfits on Lyoko, which of, like, the 4 of them, at least the original ones, do you prefer?
We should do a poll. We should definitely do a poll.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think Ulrich looks the coolest, but who knows?
I like them all for different reasons, but I think Odds is my favourite because it's just so ridiculous. What about you, Diana?
I'm with you. I do feel like I like them all for different reasons because they're so different. But I would probably pick either Odds or Yumi's. I mean, purple is like my favorite color, so I like Odds because like his is all like purple, and I think that the kiwi little like decal on his shirt is just hilarious. But I mean, Yumi's I really like too, and I like that like her weapons, like her fans are concealed like in the back of her outfit.
That is very cool. Yeah. Like, you don't know what she's capable of, what she's going to do. I guess similar to Odd, like, you don't know where the weapon's going to come from, and then out of his glove.
Yeah, but... random fan. Like, Yumi, like, I had no idea, like, speaking of unexpected weapons, I had no idea Yumi, like, used fans the first time I saw that outfit.
Yeah, like, you wouldn't guess, like, right?
She was running around the ice sector, and then suddenly, bam.
Super cool. Jeremy's on the phone to Ulrich, who's coughing his way through clouds of gas, still unable to find Sissy and Jim. Ulrich goes to try one last room, while Jeremy yells at him on the phone, telling him over and over to get out of there. There's no response. Ulrich's lying unconscious on the ground. Ulrich's having such a heroic moment here. Like, the minute he heard that Jim and Sissy were still in the school, he was like, I volunteer, and just ran off. Like, didn't stop. And I just find that really interesting. Like, obviously him and Sissy are enemies, but immediately he is going to save her. It's cool.
It is pretty sweet.
Ard and Jeremy bicker over the comms while the group on Lyoko fight their way through the Kankolats. Lots of cool flips here, and a heroic save from Yumi, who jokes that she's okay with no broken bones, which is not a thing in the virtual world. But yeah, and once again, Jeremy tells them to take good care of Aelita. I like that keeps coming through. He's like, look after her, like, make sure she's okay. He says it like at least 3 times this episode, I think. It's cute.
Totally.
Ulrich Stern title card. On Earth, Jim drags unconscious Ulrich into the closet with them. He's shocked to see Ulrich here and not Jeremy, and Sissy thinks Ulrich must have come to save her, just like she's always dreamed. Which, I know, says a lot about Sissy's fantasies, I guess.
That's kind of true.
It is. I don't know. It's, I mean, I'm sure Ulrich would have volunteered to save whoever, but I just find it interesting that it happens to be these 2.
Yeah, and also, he doesn't wake up until, like, the RTTP happens. Like, he's unconscious for the rest of this bit.
He stays passed out for the rest, yeah. Poor guy.
For sure. He does not have a good time this episode. Lasers fire on Lyoko and the group hide behind a tree. Yumi has a plan. She tells Odd to stay with Aelita. Next, we see Yumi glowing. What? Fingers pressed to her temple, her face set in concentration. She telekinetically lifts a rock and brings it crashing down on an unsuspecting Kankolat. So yeah, we see Yumi's telekinesis for the first time.
It is really cool. Like, definitely the coolest power, in my opinion.
That was going to be my, like, question for you. What's your favourite power on Lyoko? So...
I mean, creativity is probably my second. And, like, they're really close for me.
I think that those 2 are really close because, like, they are both similar but different. Like, Yumi can move things, to kind of like kill the monsters. And Aelita can just like straight up create shit out of nowhere, like with the terrain around her, which I think is really rad. I mean, Ulrich's power is cool too. He can like make a clones of himself and do the like super speed and all that. And Odd's power is basically useless. But like, I mean, I really like Yumi and Aelita's powers. I think that they're kind of matched.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they work really well together.
Yeah, they do.
That is true. I hadn't even thought about that. Aelita like conjuring stuff up, and then Yumi telekinetically firing them.
Like they do that a couple of times.
Really cool.
Like there's an episode in season 3, but we'll get there when we get there.
Eventually, many weeks and months down the line. But yeah, I love this scene. Yumi takes a couple of hits from the remaining Cancrellat and is devirtualized as Odd and Aelita cross a bridge towards the tower.
Oh my god, can we talk about how she stands there, like, still, as the Cancrellat just shoots her 3 times?
I really hate, she literally has a laser deflecting weapon, which I guess all it can do that too, but like, I don't know, you have it, it drives me kind of crazy to watch her be taken out.
It goes like a bit differently in the script, because like in the episode there's like 4 Cancrellats total. In this script there's 5. And of course, like, Yumi gets one first, and then Odd get one. And then Yumi, like, does the levitation thing. But instead of crushing a Cancrellat, she actually, like, puts it on front of them. So, like, they can't see Odd and Aelita. And then she stands on top of it. She throws a fan at one Cancrellat, and it, like, devirtualizes. And then she, like, starts avoiding the 2 other Cancrellat's lasers. And then she gets one, and then, like, she gets shot twice and gets devirtualized.
Oh, that would have been cooler.
I guess they cut it for time or animation budget or whatever, but yeah, that's way cooler. What could have been, alas. On Earth, Jim takes Ulrich's mobile phone from his lifeless hand and finds Jeremy on the line. Which, was Jeremy just on the line the whole time? Like, did Jim just overhear all of the commentary about Lyoko? I was so confused about this.
I mean, maybe. It was probably not on speaker mode, so I can't imagine he'd hear more than.
I guess that makes more sense.
And also, I feel like it takes a while because like we're intercutting the Lyoko and the Earth stuff here, so like there's a whole Lyoko bit that happens before Jim is like, oh, a cell phone.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
okay. I guess
the thing was literally in Ulrich's hand the whole time.
Again, just a couple of very strange choices in this episode as far as the writing and the setup and the details go. But Jim tells Jeremy over the phone they're running out of oxygen.
Oh. No, sorry, I was just like, yeah, like, that's right. Because in the script, the 2 scenes, the one where, like, Jim pulls him in and Sissy's like, he came with me, like, in my dreams. And then Jim finding the phone, like, it's all one scene.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That makes more sense, I think. But hey, yeah. I guess one of the structures of the show is that you have the tension of the Earth and the Lyoko scenes kind of cut quite like choppily against each other towards the end as the climax happens, so it kind of makes sense. Jim tells Jeremy they're running out of oxygen and calls out as the gas begins to pour in. Jeremy asks him if he's okay, but there's no reply. Odd and Aelita need to hurry. Unfortunately, the tower is on a platform surrounded by water. How are they gonna get past? Odd faces down the final Cancrellat and Aelita kneels at the water's edge. An ethereal chorus sounds as logs rise up through the water, forming a series of platforms for Aelita to step across.
Do we ever see this tower again?
I don't think so, which is a shame.
I don't...
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember, like, Aelita jumping from log to log in, like, another episode of season 1, maybe. I think, like, swarming attack, but, again, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, we'll have
But it is, like, really pretty.
I love this whole bit. And, yeah, up till this point, we've kind of assumed that Aelita is more or less defenseless. Did she use creativity last episode or the episode before?
No. This is the first time
she uses it, yeah.
Yeah, so then suddenly it's like, oh, she can do stuff. And it's such a cool power, and it makes so much sense for her being like the princess of Lyoko to be able to have this. It's a proper Disney princess style affinity with the land. Like, it's cool. Yeah, I think it would have been neat if it could control monsters somehow, because that kind of fits with the, like, you know, calling to the I don't know, the nature of Lyoko or whatever, but
It would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really like this scene. I think it's neat. Arden the Cancolite destroy one another simultaneously as Aelita enters the tower at last. She enters the Code Lyoko. That's it. That's the name of the show. They did the thing. Yay!
She's so slow. The way she just walks slowly up each trunk.
But Jeremy tells her to hurry up, too. Like, the only time.
Again, she just has no concept of the stakes outside of this. It's just like, oh, I've got to be really careful so I don't fall off these logs. It's like, Aelita, people are going to die.
Also, like, it says in the script that she rushes to the activated tower,
does
but I don't
not
see any
rush.
rushing in the episode.
Oh no! It's so stupid. Wow, the script changes.
Also,
yeah, sorry, go on.
the way, like, Odd, like, struggles and eventually, like, has to, like, settle for a tie with a single Cancra lad. Like, God, they're so weak in season 1.
They really are, and I actually like that you can see the development because they become such good fighters later on. But it is funny to look back at these very early episodes and be like, wow, like, I've seen what you're capable of later. This is pretty bad.
Right, but it's also, I think, part of the issue with using motion capture for season 1 Lyoko stuff versus like the other seasons they just straight up used like CGI. Because it was probably a lot more difficult for them to do like the actual fighting in motion capture. It would have required a lot more dexterity and like people like to actually do the fighting. And I mean, you're right, like them having to deal with 3 to 5 Cancralots is laughable compared to all of the monsters that they're going to have to face in later seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, like, speaking of Code Lyoko, the script in the scene right before the Code Lyoko is entered, it goes like this. The room is completely invaded by smoke. Jim and Sissy suffocate, cough, close their eyes. Ulrich is still lifeless on the ground. Sissy looks at him with sad and loving eyes. She takes his hand tenderly. Jim and Sissy have understood that it is soon over for them.
Oh no.
Oh my god, I've got like chills like listening to that
That's
last
morbid.
line. My god. This is a dark show.
It is a bit crazy.
It is. I really like how much life there is in the scripts. There's so much there's so much attention.
There's so much description. It's crazy. Like, I love it.
Me too. It's really, really fun to read them and compare to the show. So yeah, we've got shots of Aelita and shots of Earth where Ulrich lies motionless on the ground. Let's hope it's not too late, says Jeremy, and it certainly does seem like they were cutting it pretty fine this time, as the script also underlies that. Jeremy launches a Return to the Past program, and white light engulfs the world, sending our heroes back in time. It's nighttime at Caddick once more, and the gang are set to do things a little differently this time. Ulrich, I love this bit. It's so cute, and it's such a nice...
It is really sweet.
It is. Ulrich and Jeremy are spray painting the wall, and Ulrich wonders why Jeremy wants to go through the entire ordeal of getting detention again. We're not really sure either. It doesn't make any sense. We've talked about it in depth, but it's silly. Xana won't activate again so soon, so why not take a vacation? Jeremy's keen to work on the materialization program, though, and considering what they painted this time, a mural of Jim in a cape and a crown, they suspect the teacher can't be too angry. Ulrich decides to stick around this time, too. Anything's better than another one of Miss Schmitz's maths lessons. Even Jim. The episode ends with Kiwi running through the courtyard and Jim chasing after him. And that's
That was
it.
cute.
It's so cute. That whole scene is just so, yeah.
They have a great, like, friendship, Ulrich and Jeremy.
They do.
It's really cute to see. Also, like, the dub actor who was, like, voicing Jim in that final scene, like, it was actually, like, I think it was the principals.
Yeah, he sounded very different.
I never pick up on this, so it's always, the only one I noticed was Ms. Hertz and Ms. Schmitz, because they were just completely the same.
I noticed another one.
Oh, yeah.
One of the airport security agents, and I had this in my notes, he literally used the William voice.
Oh,
Really? God, I just don't... Sorry if there's any William fans, but I just usually, like, skip through all his scenes because they're usually, like, the same thing about like him and Yumi and him and Ulrich fighting over Yumi and whatever. So I don't really remember what his voice sounds like.
That's
especially
valid.
since in season 4, like his voice is just a growl.
That's totally fair. Well, good news, Quitter. We've got plenty of William episodes ahead of us in the distant future, so you can look forward to those. It's going to be great.
I don't dislike him. I just miss potential, is all.
That's fair.
Oh, that's okay. I know a lot of people who hate him.
We can.
I don't.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate him either way, but we'll like discuss that as we get on closer.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's going to be time to talk about William, which I'm really looking forward to, actually. I think there's going to be some fun analysis to be had there, for sure.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Shall we talk stats? What ouchies do we have this episode?
Oh, God. Well, obviously, I mean, the first episode was a teddy bear, and then, like, the other episode, the second one, was a near nuclear explosion. This episode, well, we've got quite a lot. First off, let me say that, like, this is the first episode of the biggest episode gap between, like, crab appearances. Because after episode 2, they don't appear again until episode 11.
Ooh.
Huh.
Which is Plagued, which is the one
that's
where,
a
like...
choice.
Yeah, it is, like, interesting to see how they're... Like, especially given that, like, in season 1, they had, like, 5 entire monsters to work with, and they decide to like just cut one out for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
But oh well, who knows? Maybe we could interview some of them eventually. Let's see. First off, well, Jeremy obviously like chokes at first. Like he chokes for quite a long time. When he first discovers the gas, and then of course, Sissy. Like she isn't like very affected, but she still wakes up in a room full of the poisonous gas. And then of course she knocks straight into Jim. She bounces off of him and into the ground, which has got to hurt at least a bit. Then of course they breathe in the toxic gas, and then Jeremy does too when he's overwhelmed outside the school. And then Ulrich, of course, falling unconscious, and well. Ulrich, Jim, and Sissy nearly die.
So I think Ulrich gets the biggest ouchie. He looks the closest to death.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, he is like definitely.
Well, and don't forget on the newscast we see that someone actually is dead.
Canonical death.
Yeah,
okay, the biggest
100%.
ouchie. That's the biggest ouchie. Ulrich has the second biggest
Yeah,
ouchie.
I didn't list canonical deaths. That's a bit silly of me.
I mean,
but
it
yeah.
doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
Thus far, it is the second time both, well, not both, but like Ulrich, Jim, and Sissy have nearly died before the Code Lyoko twice now.
Wow. And we're only 3 episodes in. Amazing. Oh, from any more on ouchies or anything else you want to add?
Nah, not any stats. I mean, like, Cancrelats, their next appearance is in episode 6, which is also set in the forest. So, not really, like, anything big going on there.
Cool.
Oh, and you said earlier it's the first time we see Yumi on the Lyoko, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's also.
And, of course, it's the first time Yumi devirtualizes a Cancrelat. It's the first time both Ulrich and... I mean, not Ulrich. Ulrich never gets devirtualized by Cancrelat. But it's the first time both Odd and Yumi get devirtualized by Cancrelats.
Mm-hmm. And the first time we see telekinesis, and the first time we see creativity.
Creativity. Indeed.
Pretty cool. As far as trivia goes, I guess we've done a whole bunch of script versus episode analysis, which is cool. Outside of POV, not super interesting at the moment, other than that Ulrich and Jeremy get caught seemingly willingly getting detention, which still looks really weird, I'd imagine, from the outside. I do wonder if after the Return to the Past, Sissy still tries to find out if anything's going on with them.
Oh, and
Probably
the graffiti.
not.
It's now Jim, like, as a king instead of Jim as a rabbit.
Yeah. I bet he took a photo of that and saved it before, like, they scrubbed it off. I would.
We don't see his reaction to it, but he probably would be pretty pleased.
I bet he'd like it, for sure. A fun episode. A weird one. Some interesting... I think the highs, as far as the character moments and the humour and the drama, are great, but the lows, as far as the inconsistencies and the nonsensicalness, are pretty low. So, do we have episode ratings? Does anyone want to go in with their thoughts out of 5?
God, I'm not quite sure. I mean, as you said, lots of highs and lots of lows. I guess I'd personally go for like a 3.5 out of 5, I guess.
Okay, cool. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. 3.5 out of 5 because like I liked the episode, but there were so many inconsistencies which I didn't really pick up on as I like when I was watching it previously, like in the past. But then rewatching it, I actually watched it last night to prep, and it's just like all of the inconsistencies like really, it didn't like, I mean, bother me, but it kind of just made things not make as much sense. Also, when they do the RTTP, it's nighttime. So like an entire day has passed. Like they must have been stuck in that closet for a long ass time.
It is nighttime. I
hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. It's a weird one. The pacing is all over the place, but
yeah, it's the pacing coupled with the various inconsistencies that I think like give like that is what makes me rate it like a 3.5.
Honestly, like I think the reason why like it was nighttime, actually think about it, is because both Teddy Godzilla and Seeing is Believing had their Return to the Past at night, so they probably just reused assets from that.
Yeah,
that
and
makes
that's
sense.
fine, and that makes sense, but like in terms of the pacing of the episode, it just throws everything off.
No, yeah, it is a bit strange. Totally.
For sure. But hey, Code Lyoko and Strange go hand in hand, so consistency across the board in that aspect at the very least.
Indeed.
I think I'm going to give it a 3, like a 2.5 to a 3, like a 2.75. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to enjoy it when I rewatched. I love the Sissy and Jim moments, and I love the Jeremy and Ulrich moments. But yeah, the whole thing was just a little bit too ridiculous in a way that kind of pulled me out of the drama of the story. So yeah, not the strongest, but also it had some bits that I really enjoyed. So, whatever.
Fair enough.
Cool. So
right.
we got a whole bunch of emails, which is super awesome.
Oh yeah.
I listened back to the episode. Cool. I must have said email us about 10 times last episode. So I guess it worked. That said, once again, if you don't already have the email address committed to memory, because I have said it that many times, you can contact us at apodcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on the most recent episode, get ahead of us and send in your thoughts for the next one. Your ratings out of 5, any trivia we might have missed, any topics for post-episode discussion that you'd like us to talk about, literally anything else, let us know. We are going to use our emails as our post-episode discussion this week because we got some really good stuff. So shall we go ahead and open up the mailbox?
All right, I've got it. Should I read the first episode?
Please go ahead.
I mean, the first email?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from Michael Nunez. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but thank you so much for writing. Hello, he says. The podcast has been so amazing so far. I've enjoyed what you all have done. I really like how you break down the episodes and dive into ideas that I never think about watching an episode. So my question is, do you think it'd be possible to do a spin-off or a sequel series type thing of Code Lyoko, where other characters were exploring a part of Lyoko that the gang has never experienced in the show, like the lava sector, and having to deal with Sana on their own? The Lyoko gang would come in from time to time later on, but I had thought about it like if maybe it's set in a college or something, where this new crop of people find the supercomputer and turn it on, and maybe they learn about their own side of Lyoko. I think it could be a good way to explain Sana being still around and a way to bring in new and old fans alike. I have another question. If there's not enough time, you can skip it. If you could have any existing character be in a Code Lyoko spin-off, how would you go about it? Thank you for reading this and for your amazing show. Hope you have a good day/night, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ooh, I love those questions.
Me too. Where do we start, Dianna? Do you want to go ahead?
I think I like actually the idea that it would be set like sometime after, like in a different environment, for a continuation, because like then that would lend more to like a world building aspect. And hopefully, like, we would be able to tie up some loose ends. But I don't know if I would want to do a completely different group of students. I would probably more go with, like, one of the background characters being promoted to main, or, you know, one of the tertiary characters being promoted to main, like Millie and Tamiya, for example, because they're younger, or Hiroki and Johnny. Wasn't somebody somewhere was talking about how they were thinking of an AU where, like, the four of them found it.
Millie, Tamiya, Hiroki. Oh god, that would be such a mess.
Oh yeah, that would be awful. But
they would not survive.
Babysitter.
They would be, like, older though, so, like, theoretically they would still be at Caddick, close enough to the factory. I mean, obviously, like, you could play with it a lot. You could have it be at any of the other supercomputers from, like, the replicas or whatever, and, like, have somebody else discover it, turn it on, and then, you know, have to figure out the whole Lyoko thing and explore. But I think that it would be really interesting to play with, like, a different set of characters. I'm not saying that, like, completely new cast is out of the question, but I think that, like, maybe promoting a main tertiary or secondary character to main would also be kind of fun to, like, get more insight into how they, like, tick.
I think that would be my take as well. And perhaps have the existing main cast around in some capacity as mentor figures.
Yes.
Or kind of, I think that's the most fun way for me to go about it, because I like these characters, I like this world. I don't know if I could so easily get attached to an entire new group of people. As for the idea of other characters exploring a part of Lyoko that the gang has never seen before, which I love the volcano sector. That is in one of the video games, if you haven't played those before.
Quest to Infinity.
There we go, that's the one. So they have a sector in there which is like a lava sector, volcano setting, which is really cool. So I think that could tie in really well to the replicas. So, the idea that there's, like, a supercomputer that exists out there and is connected to the Lyoko that we know through, like, the digital sea, and someone finds it, and suddenly there's, like, a whole other group of people on Lyoko. Does that make sense at all? I feel like that was a lot more concise in my brain, and then I started talking, and I was like, fuck, I'm not making any sense.
No, I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I think that's a cool way to do it. I think the replicas were really underdeveloped in the show, which is a shame, because the idea of this kind of whole set of supercomputers and, like, different ways into Lyoko, like, it's just a really, really neat hook for a sequel, exactly as kind of Michael suggested, or a spin-off.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think, Quitter, on Michael's questions?
Oh gosh. Well, for the first one, I mean, I definitely agree with you guys. I wouldn't have wanted to get rid of the original main characters entirely. I mean, I definitely could see something happening. Like, for the first few episodes, of course, the new characters are, like, exploring the world on their own, and then they get, like, a mysterious email from a random person that's, like, I'd say it's like Jeremy, like, suddenly finding out that something weird has popped up in his scanners that he hasn't used in so long, and then it turns out it's Santa again, but he's, like, unable to intervene directly for some reason. Maybe he's stuck on the other end of the country or, like, the world, but he still, like, tries to, you know, guide the new characters in some way. And as for the second question, I definitely would like to see a character in a spin-off. It would be really cool to see, like, Miss Hertz, in my opinion, like, especially since, like, in the books at least, she says that she was once working under Franz Hopper. So I definitely like to see how she perceived him, how he perceived her, and whether, like, she knew Aelita in some form, maybe as a baby, and, like, whether she was friends with Anthea, I think her name was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mom?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be cool. Somebody in someone on Discord somewhere was like, France probably, because, you know, he worked at Caddick, you know, would attend, like, staff functions or whatever, but this was he moved to that area, like, after Anthea was kidnapped, and kind of kept Aelita hidden. So the the theory at that point, before realizing, was that, like, you know, he brought Anthea to staff parties or whatever as his wife. But then by then she'd already been missing. But then here's this young woman who shows up like 20 years later or whatever with, like, you know, looking exactly like Anthea. And they're like, what the fuck? But I mean, that's neither here nor there because Anthea was already kidnapped. So I think it will be very interesting because, like, you know, there's no way that France never talked about his daughter. Like, it's not like he would have kept Aelita hidden from the whole entire world. Like,
there's a photo of her in the school in long exposure.
Exactly. So, like, it would have been really interesting for that to come full circle and at least for Miss Hertz to be like, what the hell is going on here? And kind of, like, in the background try to figure out what, like, is happening. Because, like, Aelita is so intertwined with the Lyoko warriors and Jeremy and everybody, that I think would have added a really interesting depth to, like, you know, the Code Lyoko as we're watching it now. But in the future, if there were, you know, anybody else to appear in a sort of spin-off, I think that it would be really cool if it were her because of the reasons that you listed, to kind of, like, delve more into Project Carthage in France and all that.
Definitely. That is such a cool choice. I love Suzanne Hertz, and I would definitely watch a whole show about her. Also, a prequel, I guess, would also be just really cool. The whole story of how fans started on Project Carthage, and one season that is just every single day is June 6, 1994, the same way as the Endless Eight in Haruhi Suzumiya would be wild. Oh my god.
Wait, wasn't the Endless Eight, like, super unpopular though?
Yeah, but it's also really cool. I mean, I can see why it's unpopular, but I don't know, whatever. I'm just thinking. I think we could spend all day talking about different spin-offs, etc. And if you want to send in more ideas, email us, put them on Discord. We could probably do a whole episode where we just talk about sequels and spin-offs and, like, all the other ways you could do that, I think. Do we want to move on to the next email?
All right. Does anyone else want to read it, or?
This is from our friend in the Discord server, Xanadu200. The email title is Holiday in the Fog. Hello there. You're all probably going to address this in the podcast anyway, so feel free to ignore this email if you want to. I was in the middle of binge watching Code Lyoko on YouTube again, as you do, until I remembered one comment I made on the episode years ago about Yumi's telekinesis. I've always wondered when in between episodes 0 and 3 did she discover that ability, how she discovered it, and how she reacted to it. Maybe she just made a bad throw with one of her fans and wanted to change trajectory to hit the target a little too late. In turn, that activated her telekinesis without noticing for a few seconds. Maybe she accidentally activated her telekinesis as a last-ditch effort to save a friend from falling into the digital sea. Heck, maybe she just asked Jeremy if she could have telekinesis powers as a new feature, and he just, complied. Those were all the conclusions I could really think of, and I would love to hear what you and the other listeners can conjure up. P.S. I'm sorry if there were any spelling or grammar errors here. Oh, you're fine. Although English is my first and only language I can speak, grammar was never my strong point. But, you did a really great job in terms of the writing and grammar, and I think that the email came across very concise and easy to understand. And I think that that's an interesting question, too. Not only for Yumi discovering her telekinesis powers, but everybody else, discovering their powers.
I guess it's easy enough for Odd because his visions just kind of come to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I made an idea once that, what was it? I made some kind of stupid pun that Odd was trying to insult Odd and was like, triangle, you late. And then, like, I don't know, suddenly there's 3 of him, and it's like, what? And that is not how that happened. I just... This is why I should not be writing the jokes for the podcast or anything ever, because... Yeah, honestly, I don't know. How did they find out about these? I am really interested. I really like Xanadu's...
It is a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, there's endless possibilities, really. I mean, obviously the most boring answer is that, like, Jeremy, like, managed to interpret the code enough to, like, see, oh, Yumi, your power is this, but that's so boring.
That is boring, but that's also kind of my thought, too. Like, that was exactly what I was going to say, and I was like, oh, that's such a lame answer. These two are going to come up with something way cooler.
I mean, realistically, that probably is what happened, but I agree. I think that we should come up with something way cooler.
For sure. I really like Xanadu 200's idea of accidentally activating it when someone's about to fall into the sea.
We're fan fiction writers. We should be able to come up with something.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to think on that one. But I really like Xanadu's ideas. I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for emailing in. Any other thoughts on those?
No, nothing we haven't said yet. No.
Sweet. Do you want me to read an email?
Sure. The next one's like really short. It's the production order one.
We can talk about the production order. Cool.
Which, thank you so much for... Yeah, because we talked about last episode about how, maybe if we see the production order, we can see like a bit like more character development. And then we talked about how we put episodes like The Girl of the Dreams, which, oh god, and Swarming Attack and whatnot early. And of course Amnesia with Sissy.
Yes, Eddie, thank you so much. You are the real MVP.
You are. Thank you, Eddie Gaster. You are amazing. This was a really, really cool piece of info, and we had a lot of fun talking about this.
So it was like, I checked up on it just in case, and totally legit. Wikipedia page actually links to the Code Lyoko France page, and the Code Lyoko France page basically has the date for like the time all the scripts were written out.
That's really cool.
Which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of people who've compiled a lot of stats and a lot of trivia, and it's really, really cool to look through. So definitely look through the wiki.
So cool.
Look through codelyoko.fr, which obviously the English translation. If you are looking at that URL and thinking I can't speak French, they have the whole website available in English too, and other languages, I think. But yeah, have a look. There's some really, really interesting information on there, and I'm sure we'll go through it in the course of the podcast. Do we want to talk about the production order? Anything in there that was surprising or interesting? I think Ghost Channel as a finale would have been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that like Ghost Channel, Code Earth, and Full Start were like the final 3. But it was a bit surprising to see Ghost Channel as the like very last one. Mm-hmm. Apart from that, I theorized that like Swarming Attack and The Girl of the Dreams were like written earlier than they were in like airing order, and I was proved right.
You were.
So yeah, Swarming Attack was like the 4th written episode, and then The Girl of the Dreams was 7th, which does make sense given how strangely they act. Ulrich in the first one, and then Jeremy and everyone really in the second one. Mm-hmm. But we also talked about how Amnesia was like the worst Sissy's ever acted, and this episode was written like right after The Trap, which is like an episode where like Sissy really shows a very caring side to her, bandaging Ulrich's arm and like sharing a very heartfelt conversation. So that really stood out to me. Yeah,
watching those two side by side on TV would definitely be an interesting experience. Like, you could be forgiven for just thinking this was a completely different character going by Sissy's characterization.
Do those 2 episodes have different writers?
Good question.
We should compile
like,
that.
I feel like a lot of Sissy's attitude kind of like depends on like the writer or just how they're feeling that week.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, there's our next project.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I'll look it up and compile like all the writers for the episodes.
I think that would be neat. Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, Killer Music being quite far down, I think makes sense in terms of Ard and Ulrich's friendship has developed quite a lot since then, which is cool. Frontier being kind of late in the production order also makes sense for that same reason. I think a lot of the kind of episodes where I think the characterization is like tighter and stronger do seem to go towards the bottom of the running order, which makes sense.
Totally agreed.
Diana, any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that the production order makes a lot of sense now after seeing it, versus, the airing order. Obviously things can change, like they can decide however they want to air these things in the schedule, more so with season 1 because it's very like episodic. And it's really interesting to see how sometimes they all differ from episode to episode in terms of like their personalities, like the characters.
Totally.
One more email from Connor. Should I read that out? Cool.
Sure.
So, for the band name, this is episode 2 thoughts, by the way. So, Seeing is Believing, which is what we reviewed last week. So, I did ask if anyone had any alternate band names for the gang. I think we all agreed pop rock progressives is incredibly difficult to say, first of all, and and really sucks. Although I'm not sure my alternates were revealed, were received so well either. But whatever, you win some, you lose some. Foxtrot Fanatics, though, I think JP was on the right track. Anyway, Connor writes, for a name for the band, they should have gone with the Lyoko Warriors. No one would have noticed the truth if they did. Then again, I actually do prefer no band because having the group protagonist form a band seems cliche. For Alita not knowing much about Earth when she gets there, I think it's a case of reading about something is different to experiencing it for real. This episode is a 3 out of 5 for me, while the Xana plot makes much more sense, although I don't know why they didn't hack the plant instead of just a single pylon. We also do not learn anything new here. On a final note, you can do both serialized and episodic at the same time. Just ask any crime investigation show. Serialized and episodic at the same time. Just ask any crime investigation show where each episode is a new crime, but there will be a seasonal plot happening side alongside. Ugh, sorry guys, I don't know what happened to my reading comprehension there, but it went completely out the window.
It's good.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, considering how much they talk openly about Lyoko, etc., they could have just called themselves the Lyoko Warriors. That actually does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, actually, it totally.
Oh, man. I don't know. I think Odd is the front man, and they could have called it, like, Catboy and the Fighters or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Do we think it's too cliche? Do we think the band was too cliche as a concept?
I mean, maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not, like, missing it like a lot, not gonna lie.
I think it worked for that episode as like the B plot, but as an overarching thing, maybe not. I mean, I think it would have been, I don't know, I think that maybe they could have had it last for like at least one more episode just for us to see like the, them dissolve it. But again, that's the curse of having season 1 be completely standalone like episodes.
For sure.
Yeah, agreed.
I guess they did have the overarching plot of Alita's materialization, which, as Connor points out, you can do episodic and serialized at the same time, side by side. You just kind of throw in tidbits of the overarching story here and there, which is kind of exactly how season 1 operates. But a bit more continuity episode to episode couldn't have worked. Couldn't have hurt.
Agreed.
I feel like I had an idea that tied into spin-offs. Oh yeah, a spin-off where they just form the band and there is like a whole... No, never mind. That's too fanficky. But just like a music AU. I really feel like we should have a whole episode where we just talk about like what the perfect spin-off would be.
Yes.
It is a good question, yeah.
I think that's definitely something we can explore down the road.
Does anyone have any other final thoughts on this episode? Or on any of the emails that we've had sent in? Or anything else?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm glad that people are even emailing us.
Oh, yeah, totally. Thank you so much. Like, Really, we really appreciate all this support.
It's so cool. We've had almost 200 listens on the podcast as well, and we've had a bunch of people in the server, and it's been fun, and a lot of fun replies on Twitter, and it's been good. I'm enjoying this. I'm glad people are still as weirdly into Code Lyoko as we are after all this time.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's amazing that the show is almost 20 years old, and here we are still talking about it, creating new content, and there's still such like a large, lively fan base for it. I love it.
Totally.
I think that is a testament to the fact that there's so much depth to it, and there's a lot of stuff that is implied or missed out that kind of forces you to think about it, to make up your own reasons, as we've kind of talked about in Holiday in the Fog, like, oh, why did this happen, or like, why did they do this? And yeah, I don't know, I think it's one of those shows that is kind of quote unquote incomplete, and that makes it much more engaging from a fandom perspective, because you have to fill in the gaps. It makes you dig deeper to ask questions, and yeah, the idea of that imperfection kind of giving rise to so much creativity is just something I love about fandom in general.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
the show itself ended with loose ends that needed to be tied up, and they were never really tied up in any subsequent media for the most part. So just the ability to be able to speculate endlessly about it, it's really fun.
It is. It's super fun.
Totally. There's so many like amazing theories that I never would have considered. Like from both you two and from like a lot of other people in the Discord server. And it's really just amazing to see how we can come up with so many different things from just this random TV show.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. I keep fucking up the outro and our release schedule, so I'm going to hand it over to Dianna. You can plug the things, tell them what's going on, and yeah, over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode. Next time we will be back with episode 4, Logbook, which is another gem in my opinion. And if you want to email us, like we had emails today, you can do that at apodcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Code Lyoko Pod. We also have a Discord server, which you can find in our link tree on our Twitter. That's where all of our links are. You can find all the platforms that our podcast is available on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Join the Discord, send us an email, find us individually on Twitter, find us on Archive of Our Own. We're all out here enjoying Code Lyoko. But I mean, with that, I think that we had a pretty successful episode once again, and we will be back next time with Logbook.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much, everyone.